October 20th, 1944. The cellar of the Hotel Quellenhof, Aachen, Germany. The air is a thick cocktail of limestone dust, stale sweat, and the bitter tang of cordite. For days, the world for Signal Helfer and Anneliese Schmidt has been this subterranean space. Her universe shrunk to the crackle of her Feldfoo B radio set and the rhythmic tremor of the building above. Each shudder is another American artillery shell finding its mark on the first German city to fall. The tremors are weaker now, more sporadic. The silence between them is worse. It's a waiting silence, heavy and suffocating. Anneliese, just 19, runs a hand over her gritty, tear-streaked face. Her Luftwaffe Helferin in uniform, once a source of immense pride, is now just a gray shroud, stained and torn. She looks across the cramped space at Eva Rost, a nurse 10 years her senior. Eva's face, illuminated by a single flickering lantern, is a mask of weary cynicism. She has seen too much on the Eastern Front to harbor any illusions. "They've stopped," Anneliese whispers, her voice raspy. The radio is dead. Not damaged, just silent. There is no one left to talk to. The entire Aachen garrison, what remains of it, is trapped. Eva doesn't look up from cleaning a small scalpel with a dirty rag. They haven't stopped. They're repositioning for the final push. Or they're waiting. Waiting for what? The question hangs in the dusty air. Outside, the scraping of rubble and the guttural shouts in a foreign language are growing closer. English. American. The sounds they have been trained to fear. The voices of the terror fleeters and the gangster soldiers Goebbels warned them about on the wireless. Anneliese pictures caricatures from posters, brutish men with cruel grins. The reality is now just meters away, on the other side of a collapsed wall. A sharp command echoes down the stairwell, followed by the clatter of boots and equipment. This is it. The end of the battle. The beginning of something else. An Oberleutnant, his face a ghostly white canvas of exhaustion, stumbles into the cellar. He doesn't even look at the two women. He looks at the other half-dozen wounded soldiers lying on filthy straw pallets. "It's over," he says, his voice hollow. Colonel Wilk has surrendered the city. He unbuckles his Walther P38 pistol and lets it fall to the floor with a heavy clink. The sound is deafening, a punctuation mark at the end of a long, bloody sentence. Surrender. The word itself feels like a betrayal, a physical poison. Everything they had been told, everything they had fought for, was to hold this city to the last man, the last woman, the last brick. The Americans are methodical. They appear at the top of the stairs, silhouettes against the gray daylight, M1 Garand rifles held at the ready. You can smell them before you see them clearly. The scent of damped wool, gun oil, and something else, soap. It's a clean smell, jarringly out of place in this tomb. They are not the monsters from the posters. They are young men, their faces smudged with dirt and fatigue, their eyes wary. One of them, a corporal with kind eyes and a Midwestern accent that sounds strange and musical, gestures with his rifle. "Out, Rouse. Let's go." As Anneliese stumbles up the steps and into the light, the devastation is absolute. The sky is a uniform, unforgiving gray. The grand architecture of Aachen is a skeletal ruin, jagged teeth of stone clawing at the sky. American soldiers from the 1st Infantry Division, the big red one, are everywhere, their olive-drab uniforms a stark contrast to the city's pale rubble. They herd the German survivors into the center of a shattered plaza. Anneliese and Eva are pushed into a line with other women, nurses, typists, telephone operators, the women of the Wehrmacht, the auxiliaries who kept the machine running. They are now prisoners, property of the United States Army. Eva keeps a protective hand on Anneliese's arm, her expression grim. "Don't look them in the eye," she mutters. "Don't speak unless you are spoken to. Show no fear. They are testing us." Every glance from a passing GI, every shouted order, feels like a threat. Their future has been erased, replaced by a terrifying, formless void. They are marched through the streets, past the dead of both sides, their boots crunching on spent shell casings. The journey into captivity has begun, and every step takes them further from a world they once knew, a world that no longer exists. They are loaded onto the back of a canvas-covered GMC truck, the flap pulled down, plunging them into a rocking, diesel-fumed darkness.
The engine roars to life, and as the truck lurches forward, Annalise has no idea if she is being taken to an interrogation center, a prison camp, or a shallow grave. The only certainty is that her life is no longer her own.
The journey west is a descent into a surreal purgatory. First, the train, a rattling cattle car packed so tightly with prisoners that there is no room to sit. The smell is overpowering. For days, they crawl across a ravaged France, catching glimpses of a broken continent through the slats. Then, a processing camp near Cherbourg, a muddy, wind-swept field of tents where they are deloused with DDT powder, interrogated briefly, and stripped of the last vestiges of their former lives. Their documents are taken, their names replaced by a number stamped onto a metal tag. Annalise Schmidt is gone. In her place is prisoner 81G 48791. Eva is 81G 48792. The numbers are a cold, hard brand, signifying their new status as human inventory. The Atlantic crossing is the true breaking point. They are herded into the hold of a Liberty ship, a vast, echoing steel cavern that smells of vomit and bilge water. For 2 weeks, the world is the groaning of the ship's hull, the constant nauseating swell of the ocean, and the oppressive darkness. They are cargo. When they finally emerge on deck, blinking into the bright sun, the sight is so alien, so utterly impossible, it feels like a fever dream. It is the skyline of New York City. The buildings are impossibly tall, pristine, untouched. The journey west is a descent into a surreal purgatory. First, the train, a rattling cattle car packed so tightly with prisoners that there is no room to sit. The smell is overpowering. For days, they crawl across a ravaged France, catching glimpses of a broken continent through the slats. Then, a processing camp near Cherbourg, a muddy, wind-swept field of tents where they are deloused with DDT powder, interrogated briefly, and stripped of the last vestiges of their former lives. Their documents are taken, their names replaced by a number stamped onto a metal tag. Annalise Schmidt is gone. In her place is prisoner 81G 48791. Eva is 81G 48792. The numbers are a cold, hard brand, signifying their new status as human inventory. The Atlantic crossing is the true breaking point. They are herded into the hold of a Liberty ship, a vast, echoing steel cavern that smells of vomit and bilge water. For 2 weeks, the world is the groaning of the ship's hull, the constant nauseating swell of the ocean, and the oppressive darkness. They are cargo. When they finally emerge on deck, blinking into the bright sun, the sight is so alien, so utterly impossible, it feels like a fever dream. It is the skyline of New York City. The buildings are impossibly tall, pristine, untouched. There are no hollowed-out shells, no bomb craters, no columns of smoke. Ferries churn across the water, and on a distant island, a green statue of a woman holds a torch aloft. Eva squints at it. Propaganda, she spits, though her voice lacks conviction. A facade. They hide their slums, their decay. It is a trick. But Annalise cannot tear her eyes away. The sheer scale of it, the wholeness of it, is a physical blow. This is the enemy. A nation so powerful, so wealthy, it can wage a war across the ocean and remain completely unscarred. The realization is more terrifying than any artillery barrage. They have not been fighting a country. They have been fighting a different world entirely. The next journey is by rail, and it takes them deeper into the heart of this new world. The train is not a cattle car this time, but a passenger train with windows. Armed guards sit at either end of their carriage, but they are permitted to look out. They cross vast plains, past tidy farms with red barns and fields of corn that stretch to the horizon. They see towns with bustling main streets, automobiles parked neatly along the curbs, children playing in yards. It is a spectacle of infuriating normalcy. Annalise watches, her mind struggling to reconcile this peaceful, prosperous landscape with the ruin she left behind. Where is the rationing, the fear, the constant presence of death? Then the landscape begins to change. The green gives way to a scorched, dusty brown. The heat becomes a physical presence, pressing in through the glass. The sky is a vast, bleached-out blue, bigger than any sky she has ever seen. This is Texas. Their final destination is a place called Camp Mixia, a sprawling city of barbed wire and simple wooden barracks laid out in a perfect, soulless grid under the oppressive sun.
When they step off the train, the heat hits them like a physical wall. Dust coats their throats. The guards, their uniforms dark with sweat, herd them through the gates. Towers with searchlights stand sentinel at the corners. The wire is everywhere, a constant shimmering reminder of their confinement. Life in Camp Mixia settles into a brutal, monotonous rhythm dictated by the sun and the camp siren. Reveille before dawn, roll call, meals in a noisy mess hall, and long, empty hours to fill. They are put to work in the camp laundry or in the fields on the camp's farm, picking cotton under the watchful eyes of the guards. Eva's cynicism hardens into a protective shell. She sees traps everywhere. The decent food is an attempt to soften them for interrogation. The medical care is for gathering intelligence on German field medicine. Every small kindness from a guard is a calculated test of loyalty. Annalise tries to hold on to a sliver of hope, learning a few words of English from a dog-eared primer she found, but the crushing boredom and the endless Texas horizon conspire to grind her down. The months drag on. The war in Europe rages, but here it is a distant rumor, something they hear about in heavily censored letters from home or terse announcements from the camp administration. They are forgotten women in a forgotten corner of the world, suspended between a past that is gone and a future that is unimaginable. One blistering afternoon in the late spring of 1945, after the war in Europe has finally ended, a notice is posted. Major Davies, the American camp commandant, has ordered a special assembly for all female prisoners. Whispers ripple through the barracks. A new interrogation, a transfer, repatriation, no one knows. As they stand in silent, anxious rows under the searing sun, the major, a stern-looking but fair man, makes an announcement through an interpreter that is so bizarre, so completely unbelievable, it sends a wave of stunned silence through the assembled women. The offer is simple. They are being offered a chance to leave the camp for an evening. They are being taken to the movies in the nearby town of Mixia.
The commandant's words hang in the thick, humid air, distorted by the crackle of the primitive public address system. For a full 10 seconds, the only sound is the buzzing of insects and the faint, rhythmic creak of a distant guard tower. Then, a low murmur spreads through the ranks of the women. It is a sound of profound disbelief. The movies? It has to be a mistranslation. Annalise glances at Eva, whose face has hardened into a mask of contemptuous suspicion. Eva leans closer, her voice a low, urgent hiss. Do you see? This is it. The real test begins now. What test? Annalise whispers back, her heart beginning to pound with a confusing mixture of fear and a tiny, treacherous spark of curiosity. What could they possibly gain by showing us a film? Everything, Eva insists, her eyes scanning the faces of the American officers standing on the small wooden platform. They will take us out. They will parade us through the town. They will watch how we react. They will look for the weak ones, the ones who are impressed by their decadent luxuries. They will look for the ones who break discipline, the ones who might be tempted to talk. It's a psychological game, Annalise, a cruel one. The interpreter clarifies the offer. It is voluntary. Any woman who wishes to go should sign her name on a list. Transportation will be provided. They will be under guard at all times. The film is an American production called Going My Way. The title means nothing to them. To most of the women, the entire proposition is nonsensical, a violation of the unwritten rules of captivity. A prisoner's world is one of deprivation and control. An offer of entertainment, of a simple pleasure from their old lives, is so far outside that reality that it can only be a deception. Back in the suffocating heat of Barrack C, the debate rages. A group of older women, staunch party loyalists, declare it an insult, an American attempt to mock them with their wealth while their families starve back in a ruined Germany. They want to show us their movie stars and their fancy cars while our cities are rubble, one woman says, her voice trembling with anger. I will not give them the satisfaction. Others are simply terrified. Leaving the relative safety of the camp, even a prison camp, feels like stepping off a cliff. The wire is a barrier, but it is also a shield against the unknown hatred of the local population. They have seen the faces of the townspeople from the train, hard, distrustful faces. To be marched among them feels like an invitation for humiliation or violence. But Annalise finds herself wrestling with a different feeling. The monotony of the camp is a slow death. The same dusty ground, the same wooden walls, the same blank faces day after day. The idea of seeing something, anything else, is a powerful lure. But what if it isn't a trick, she ventures, speaking to Eva as they sit on their narrow cots. What if it's just a movie? Like we used to see in Aachen. Before? Eva stops polishing her tin cup and fixes Annalise with a look of pity. There is no before anymore, and there is no just
not for us. Everything they do has a purpose. Remember your training. An enemy is an enemy. They smile while they sharpen the knife. This Major Davies, he is not our friend. He is our jailer. He wants to see who is foolish enough to trust him. Her logic is cold and powerful. It is the logic of survival, forged in the fires of a total war that consumed everything, especially trust. For years, they had been taught that the enemy was subhuman, and they had no reason to believe the enemy did not think the same of them. Kindness from a captor was the most suspicious act of all. Yet, the list begins to fill. Hesitantly at first, then with more conviction, women sign their names. For some, it is simple curiosity. For others, it is a desperate gamble for a few hours of escape from the soul-crushing boredom of the camp. The desire to feel normal, even for a moment, is a powerful human instinct, one that can override even the most ingrained fear. Annalise stands before the list for a long time, her finger hovering over the paper. She thinks of the endless, identical days stretching before her. She thinks of the commandant's strangely impassive face. Was it cruelty, or was it something else? In an act of quiet rebellion against the certainty of her own fear, she signs her name. Eva watches her, shaking her head slowly. You are a fool, little bird, a naive fool. When they separate you for questioning, do not say I did not warn you. On the designated evening, the chosen women are assembled near the front gate. They have done their best to look presentable, washing their faces and smoothing their drab, shapeless camp uniforms. A nervous energy buzzes through the group. They stand in formation, a small island of gray in the vast orange glow of the Texas sunset. Then they hear it, the low rumble of engines. Two large, canvas-topped GMC trucks, the same type that took them from the ruins of Aachen, pull up outside the gate, kicking up clouds of red dust. Armed guards, young soldiers with M1 rifles, jump from the back. The heavy metal gate screeches open. The moment is here. Eva's words echo in Annalise's mind. A test, a trap, a truck in the darkness. It had all started this way. Now, as the American sergeant gestures for them to board, the fear returns, cold and sharp. This time, they are climbing into the trucks willingly, and that feels like the most dangerous thing of all.
Climbing into the back of the GMC truck is a grimly familiar act. The rough canvas, the hard wooden benches, the smell of gasoline and dust, it's a sensory memory that transports Annalise straight back to the chaos of the fall of Aachen. The 20 women in her truck sit silently, ramrod straight, avoiding eye contact with each other, and with the two young American guards who sit by the tailgate, their rifles held loosely but ready across their laps. The engine turns over with a roar, the truck shudders, and they begin to move. The gates of Camp Mixia slide past, and for the first time in months, they are outside the wire. The feeling is not one of freedom, but of profound vulnerability. They are a fragile cargo of enemy women moving through hostile territory. The truck picks up speed, rattling down a dirt road that runs parallel to the camp fence. Through the open back, Annalise watches the familiar barracks and guard towers recede into the deepening twilight. The world outside is vast and strange. The setting sun paints the enormous sky in violent streaks of orange, pink, and purple. Jackrabbits dart across the road, and the chirping of crickets grow into a deafening chorus. It is a raw, untamed landscape, so different from the manicured fields and ancient forests of home. It feels like another planet. The guards are silent. They are boys, not much older than Annalise, their faces shadowed under their helmets. One of them nervously chews on a piece of gum, the rhythmic motion of his jaw the only sign of life. Are they nervous too? The thought is unsettling. After a few miles, the dirt road gives way to paved asphalt, and the ride becomes smoother. They begin to see signs of civilization, isolated farmhouses with lights glowing warmly in the windows, mailboxes standing like lonely sentinels at the end of long driveways. Then the lights become more frequent. They are entered in the town of Mixia. The truck slows down, its engine a low grumble in the quiet evening. Here, the test Eva predicted seems to begin. People on the sidewalk stop and stare. A man in overalls holding a young daughter's hand points openly. A group of teenage boys on bicycles follows them for a block, their faces a mixture of curiosity and contempt. Annalise feels a hot blush of shame creep up her neck. They are a spectacle, a freak show, the captured enemy on display. She forces herself to stare straight ahead, focusing on the rough texture of the canvas wall, her hands clenched into tight fists in her lap. This is the humiliation. This is the purpose of the trip, to be shown off like animals in a zoo. The truck makes a sharp turn onto what appears to be the main street. It is brightly lit with neon signs that buzz and flicker in the gathering dark. Drugs, one sign glows in red. Barber shop,
another in blue. And then, dead ahead, is a building that seems impossibly bright, a palace of light in the small town. The marquee spells out majestic in glowing letters. Below it, another sign announces the feature, Bing Crosby and Going My Way. The truck pulls to a stop directly in front of the theater. The second truck pulls up behind them. The sergeant in charge jumps down from the cab and barks an order. All right, let's go. Single file, no talking. The guards by the tailgate leap down, their boots hitting the pavement with a solid thud. They position themselves on either side of the truck's rear opening. This is the most frightening moment yet. The women hesitate, a collective intake of breath. To step out of the truck is to step onto a stage, into the full glare of the Tron's attention. But they have no choice. One by one, they slide off the benches and down onto the street, forming a neat gray line on the sidewalk. The air smells of popcorn and sweet soda, a scent so incongruous, so redolent of a lost world of simple pleasures that it makes Annalise's head spin. The townspeople have formed a small, silent crowd, watching them. There is no open hostility, no shouting, just a heavy, pervasive curiosity. The sergeant leads them toward the entrance. A man in a small ticket booth watches them pass with wide eyes. Inside, the lobby is small but ornate, with a red carpet and gold-painted fixtures. It feels like a temple. The American guards flank them, guiding them through a set of double doors and into the theater itself. It is dark, cavernous, and already half full of civilians who turn in their seats to watch the strange procession. The women are directed to a reserved section of seats in the center. As Annalise sinks into the plush velvet of the chair, the sheer absurdity of the situation is overwhelming. She is a prisoner of war in an enemy town, in an enemy country, sitting in a luxurious movie palace, surrounded by armed guards and curious locals, waiting to watch a film. The lights are still up. The air is thick with anticipation and the low murmur of the American audience. Eva's words ring in her ears, a psychological game. The door swings shut behind them with a soft but definitive thud, and the theater is plunged into a deeper, more intimate darkness. Now they are truly trapped.
The darkness is absolute for a moment, and in that void, fear takes hold. Annalise's breath catches in her throat. Her muscles are coiled tight, ready for anything. A sudden flood of lights, a harsh command from a loudspeaker, the beginning of an interrogation. Beside her, she can feel the tension radiating from the other women. This is it. The trick is about to be revealed. The soft velvet of the seat feels like a trap, the perfumed air of the theater like a poison. She can make out the silhouettes of the American guards standing impassively in the aisles, their presence a constant, unnerving reminder of who is in control. A low hum starts, and two massive curtains at the front of the room begin to part, revealing a vast white screen. Suddenly, the screen explodes with light and sound. It's a newsreel. A booming American voice narrates scenes of the war they have just survived. Grainy black and white footage shows American B-17 bombers dropping their payloads over a German city. The image is sickeningly familiar. Then, scenes of GIs advancing through a landscape of rubble that could be Aachen or any one of 100 other shattered towns. A wave of collective anguish ripples through the German women. Several stifle sobs. This, they think, is the true purpose. A re-education. A forced confrontation with their defeat, designed to break their spirit. Annalise shuts her eyes, unable to watch the destruction of her homeland presented as a heroic victory. This is worse than any physical cruelty. It is a calculated act of psychological warfare. But then, just as abruptly as it began, the newsreel ends. The screen goes dark. A new image appears, this one in soft focus, accompanied by gentle melodic music. The title card appears, Going My Way. The story that unfolds has nothing to do with war. It is about a young, charismatic priest, played by a man with a warm, easygoing smile named Bing Crosby, who arrives at a struggling parish in New York City. He sings, he jokes, he deals with a group of streetwise boys by forming a choir. He clashes gently with the older, more traditional priest. There are no bombs, no uniforms, no death. The conflicts are small, human, and rooted in faith and community. For the first 20 minutes, the women watch in a state of stunned, suspicious silence. They are waiting for the other shoe to drop. They analyze every scene for hidden propaganda, every line of dialogue for a coded message. But there is none. It is just a story. A simple, sentimental, and profoundly peaceful story. Annalise finds herself leaning forward, captivated despite herself. The world on the screen is so utterly alien to her experience. It's a world where problems are solved with a song, where kindness prevails, where the deepest wounds are matters of the heart, not of shrapnel. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the tension in the rows of gray uniforms begins to dissolve. A woman a few seats down lets out a small, choked laugh at one of Crosby's jokes.
No one shushes her. Another discreetly wipes a tear from her eye during a poignant musical number. The guards offer them small paper bags of popcorn and bottles of Coca-Cola. Most refuse at first, but a few tentatively accept. Annalise takes a bottle. The drink is cold, sweet, and fizzy. A shocking sensation. It tastes of another life. She glances at Eva. In the flickering light from the screen, she can see that the older woman's cynical mask has begun to crack. Her jaw is no longer clenched. Her eyes are fixed on the screen, her expression one of deep, sorrowful confusion. This is the real test, Annalise realizes, but not the one Eva predicted. It is not a test of loyalty or a search for weakness. The test is in the act of dignity itself. The Americans had not paraded them for humiliation. They had not subjected them to propaganda. They had simply offered them 2 hours of escape. They had treated them not as monstrous enemies, not as faceless prisoners with numbers, but as human beings who might appreciate a film. This simple, unexpected act of restraint is more disarming than any threat. It doesn't erase the war, the deaths, or the chasm of hatred between their nations, but it complicates everything. It introduces a sliver of nuance into a world that had been stripped down to black and white absolutes of us versus them. When the film ends and the credits roll, no one moves for a long moment. They sit in the darkness, enveloped by the gentle music, processing the experience. The house lights come up, painfully bright, and the spell is broken. They are prisoners again. They are filed out of the theater in silence, past the now empty lobby, and back into the cool Texas night. The ride back to camp is quiet. No one speaks. There is nothing to say. The experience was too personal, too profound. As the truck rumbles through the gates of Camp Mixia and pulls to a stop in the familiar dusty compound, Annalise looks through the barbed wire at the impossibly vast and starry Texas sky. She is still a prisoner. Her country is still in ruins. Her future is still a terrifying unknown. But something inside her has shifted. The wall of absolute fear and hatred, built over years of war and propaganda, has a crack in it. A single humane act had not brought peace or forgiveness, but it had allowed a tiny, dangerous flicker of light to pass through. And in the darkness of her world, that was enough to change everything.